topic that holds the key to unlocking a life of boundless possibilities. We are going to unravel an ancient secret that no one else will ever teach you. Now, when you truly understand and embrace this secret, you won't be waiting for success to feel empowered or for wealth to feel abundant. It's about stepping into a future that you can't see or touch yet, but have envisioned so vividly in your mind that your brain believes it's already happened. So what's the fundamental question? Can you believe in a future that you can't perceive with your senses yet? It starts with a clear intention. An intention is like a vision, a possibility. Picture this. What would it be like to be healthy, wealthy, or have that dream job? That's intention. Now let's add some details. Write it down, make a list. The more detailed, the better. This fortifies your dream and rewires your brain in new ways. But it's not just about thinking, it's about feeling. When you get inspired and start feeling what it would be like to live that future, your body is getting a taste of what's to come. You have to feel the awe for the mystical moment to happen. Feel abundance before wealth. Feel in love with life before that dream relationship materializes. Now, combining a clear intention with an elevated emotion is the magic formula. Thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body. When you align them, your brain and body are living in the future, not the past. And guess what? You'll be drawn to new opportunities. Thoughts are like an electrical charge, and feelings are the magnetic charge. How you think and feel broadcasts an electromagnetic signature that influences every atom in your life. It's like you're creating a magnetic field that attracts the experiences you desire. But here's the challenge. Can you maintain that vision of the future independent of your current conditions, emotional addictions, and the passage of time? Because that's where true greatness lies. Most brains are wired to reflect the past, like a record replaying everything known. If you feel the same every day, nothing new is happening, and those emotions are anchoring you to the past. All right, let's break down this fascinating journey of changing your brain and creating a new reality using simple words. So there's this really cool thing happening in science, neuroscience. It's like a brain exploration mission, and guess what they found out? You can change your brain to look like something has already happened, even if it hasn't. It's like telling your brain, hey, imagine this awesome event has already taken place. But here's the magic question. Can you feel it so deeply in your heart that your whole body believes it's happening right now? It's not about waiting for things to change outside, it's about changing the inside first. Now, changing is a bit like learning a new dance. It's not just about moving your feet differently. It's about becoming someone who loves to dance. Similarly, changing isn't just making different choices. It's like becoming a superhero with a vision of the future, not a memory of the past. Think of thoughts as the language your brain speaks and feelings as the language your body speaks. When you put them together, you create a special vibe, a state of being. Now, here's where the story gets super interesting. Your body, which is like your secret agent, your unconscious mind, can be trained to believe it's living in a future reality. It's like you're sending signals to your genes telling them, hey, we're living this fantastic experience. You're not just going along with what your senses tell you. You're creating a whole new reality from the inside, like a magic show happening within you. But let's keep it real. It's not a quick trick. It's more like planting a garden. You're pulling your brain and body out of the past, shaking off the old stories and planting new seeds for the future. Imagine changing your brain waves, like turning the dial on a radio to catch a different frequency. It's not a one-time thing. It's a skill like learning to ride a bike or play a game. You do it over and over with understanding and consistency. It's like becoming a master chef. You practice the recipe until you get it just right. Similarly, you're practicing changing your brain and body to cook up a new reality. It's a bit of a brain workout, a training routine for your mind and body. In this adventure of change, Patience is your sidekick, repetition is your training partner, and understanding is your compass. So keep at it, keep practicing, and soon you'll see the amazing masterpiece you've created. A brand new you, living in a future reality you've crafted from the inside out. Imagine you've mismanaged your energy and emotions for years, leading to a health condition. Reprogramming the gene for wellness will take time. It's not a quick fix, but a journey of relearning, regrouping, and filling your mind with knowledge. The most challenging part is thinking greater than how you feel. If you can't do that, your body is dictating your life. Healing is a process, not a one-time event. It's like catching a fish. The moment you feel the change, you'll correlate it with what you're doing inside, and that's when the magic amplifies. Now, let's demystify the process. When you meditate every day, it's not about waiting for the physical evidence. It's about getting beyond your analytical mind and entering the generous present moment. In this moment, your pure consciousness, transcending your identity and merging with a greater consciousness. This is the point where your conscious mind merges with your subconscious mind, the operating system for true change. If you're sick and can get beyond your body in meditation, you're instructing your body from a place greater than the body itself. It's a shift from matter trying to change matter to consciousness directing the transformation. So imagine your mind is like a superhero training ground, and the superhero is you. You see, it takes a bit of practice, like learning to ride a bike or playing a new game. But what are you practicing? You're teaching your mind, that powerful superhero brain of yours, to overcome the tricky stuff your body might throw at you. Think of your mind as a coach, helping your body get stronger and healthier. There's this really cool moment when you're not stuck in the past or worrying about the future. It's like doing a perfect cartwheel, smooth, elegant, and totally in the present. But here's the thing, you can't rush it. It's a bit like growing a garden. You plant the seeds, water them, and patiently wait for the flowers to bloom. Healing is a bit like that. You need time, and you have to keep at it regularly, just like watering your plants. Now, when you're in that superhero training mode, especially during meditation, something amazing happens. It's like your mind takes the spotlight and your body becomes the background dancer. You're not trying to change your body. You're like a magician transforming it with the power of your mind. And remember, this isn't a race with a finish line. It's more like an awesome road trip. You're not just waiting to arrive at a cool destination. You're enjoying the journey, the landscapes, and all the exciting stops along the way. So, as you set off on this adventure, know that you're not just a passenger, you're the driver of this incredible journey. You've got the power to change the way your brain thinks, the way your body feels, and the overall plot of your life story. And it takes a little practice. And just like a flower that takes time to bloom, it takes a little bit of time. But if you work in trading the resentment, the frustration, or the impatience for gratitude, appreciation, and thankfulness, and you keep at it, there'll come a moment where that system switches on, and now you're feeling grateful for no reason at all. That's not a bad thing, because gratitude, the emotional signature of gratitude, means something's happening to you, something has happened to you, you're receiving something, or you just received something. So your body, then when you're feeling gratitude, is in the perfect state of receiving. So then that means then you'll accept, believe, and surrender to the thoughts equal to the emotional state of gratitude. If you're living in resentment, you're living in fear, you're living in impatience, you could say, I'm healthy, I'm healthy, I'm healthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy. And with all you want, and that thought's going to stop right at the brainstem and never make its way to the body, because your heart's not feeling it, or because what? Because you're feeling resentment. And that thought is not consistent with the emotion of resentment. Resentment has a different set of thoughts, right? In other words, once you start opening your heart, it begins to move into coherence. It begins to produce a measurable magnetic field up to 3 meters wide. Now that's frequency, that's energy, and all that energy, that frequency, carries information, carries an intent. So then, when you're feeling gratitude and your heart is open, you're broadcasting energy into the field. A frequency a frequency. You lay the intent of the thought of your health or your wealth. That frequency can carry the thought of your wealth. It can carry the thought of your health. If you're suffering, you can't eat. Suffering does not carry, that energy does not carry the thought of your wealth. It carries a different set of thoughts. So then we're teaching people how to self-regulate. Because if you're going to believe in that future that you're imagining with all of your heart, it better be open and activated, and you better know how to self-regulate. And you have to know the moment you disconnect from the energy of your future because of some circumstance in your life, and you lose that feeling. If you're practicing it on a daily basis with your eyes closed, then the next level is to be able to open your eyes and do it right in the moment, and be able to self-regulate and change the frustration from some experience in your life back to the energy of your future. Now, that requires great awareness and great effort. But if you have a community of people that are practicing this on a daily basis, and they're connected to their future, because that's where their mind is, they begin to want the future more than the emotions of the past. So we've done enough measurements now, Louis, to know that we can teach people how to do that, and we have evidence that people can sustain it for 45 minutes to an hour. It's a skill now. They know that they know how to do it. So now they have brain coherence and heart coherence. Well, once the heart begins to become orderly and coherent, it acts as an amplifier, and it drives energy to the brain. So now the brain is getting more energy once the heart is open, and then you're thinking a different set of thoughts, and those thoughts produce different chemicals for you to feel more of that. And here comes nitric oxide from oxytocin, and all of a sudden your heart literally starts to swell. It literally begins to open up, and there's more energy going there, and now you're coming from a different level of mind. Right? When you have coherence in the brain and heart, you have a laser of energy, and it could read information much better. You're living in stress, and your brain is shifting its attention from one person to another problem, to another thing, to another place to go. Each one of those things, there's an assignment of neurological networks in the brain. So the arousal of the stress hormones drives the brain into this high frequency, and you're trying to control and predict everything in your life, and your brain circuits are firing like a lightning storm in the clouds. When your brain's incoherent, you're incoherent, and you don't have a signal. You don't have a Wi-Fi signal. You're not connected to the field. How could you connect to energy and information if your signal hasn't become orderly? So then when people synchronize their energy into coherence, they can synchronize to a possibility in the future. And the synchronicities that are feedback from the environment are just a reflection of your energy. And that's the universe saying, follow the breadcrumbs, do it again, follow it again, do it again. And now all of a sudden the person's not waking up in the morning like, oh, I've got to meditate now to create my future. That's the work right there. That's the part you have to overcome. So some days you just kind of slip in and it's magic because you've been practicing, like having a great golf game or a great tennis game or a great run or a great session of knitting. You're in your groove. Other days you got to work a little bit more for it. And for me, what I've learned is those hard days, the days that are the most challenging, are always the most rewarding. Because now you're uncompromising to an outcome. And if it takes you an hour to get beyond yourself, to find the present moment, because that's the only place where the unknown exists, the familiar emotions and hardwired patterns of the past are the known. The predictable future and trying to forecast the feeling of every event in our life, what people do unconsciously, is also the known. There's only one place where the unknown exists, and that's the present moment. So, you call it the generous present moment. Yeah, and I've just done it enough times, and there are plenty of people in our work that have done it enough times to know when you're there and when you're not. And when you're not, it's very obvious because you've been there enough times. So you're separating your old story from yourself, and you're separating your focus on the future, and you're being present. It's just like hitting a tennis ball in a sweet spot. You lock in the something, and that wholeness starts to happen, and now you're no longer creating from polarity or duality or opposites. Like, people, they create when they see they don't have something. Whether, hey, nice suit, I want one of those, right? And the moment I see that you have a nice suit and I start thinking, I want one of those, my brain naturally starts putting me in the equation. Next thing you know, I'm wearing your suit. Well, that's because we're wired to do that. So then we have this natural ability to create. The problem is after you imagine that, you open your eyes and you don't have it, people experience more lack. Well, we're not that good yet. So then the act of practicing enough times and beginning to create the state in which you're so connected to the energy of your future. Now think about this. You're so connected to the energy of your future, you're no longer looking for it or waiting for it. You feel like it's already happened. The moment you get upset in traffic, the moment you start judging a coworker, you just disconnected from the energy of your future, and now you're back to the energy of your past. Now, if you tell me it was that person that did it to you, I'd say to you, oh, you're back to the unconscious program of being a victim again. So then the person then goes, oh, when did I fall from that state? When did I lose it? Oh, it happened at 3 o'clock today. The next time that happens, what can I do differently? Now the person's moving through their challenges in their life with coherence, with rhythm. They're starting to begin to make strides, and they're no longer knee-jerking to the people in their life that they've used emotionally to reaffirm their identity. Now this is the work because you look around to see if anybody's doing it and you don't see anybody else doing it. It's kind of this lonely moment where you're realizing that I'm the only one doing this. That's that kind of moment that you realize that nobody understands you but you, right? And you can't even ask your friends for their opinion because they're going to give you their opinion based on their own experiences. And it's that kind of moment where you have to draw in all your resources. So, have you ever heard me say that emotions are bad? Have you? No, emotions are the end product of an experience. So then, do I react in my life? Yep, I do. But the question is, how long are you gonna react? That's the real question. Because if you keep that emotional reaction going on for an extended period of time, sooner or later it'll become your identity. And then people say, why are you so bitter? Why are you so frustrated? Why are you suffering so much? And your brain, in that emotion, you're in the emotion, which means you're in the chemical residue of the past, is going to call up the event because you're emotionally connected to it. And you're going to say, I'm this way because of that past experience. So then imagine what I do with people. We have people that have been abused. We have people that have been traumatized, that have been assaulted. We have people that have had very, very difficult pasts. And have you ever heard me say to revisit the event? Have you ever heard me say that? Never. We need to revisit the event because once you do, you open the box. But what we want to do is overcome the emotion because that's just what's lasting from the event. So you sit a person down, and the moment you sit them down, what do you think the body's going to do? It's going to look for something to recreate that emotion because that's the person's identity. Are you with me still? So if I make the person, if I inspire the person to sit there, and they're sitting there, and all of a sudden they're noticing that they're hot, and they're irritated, and their stomach is twisting, and all of a sudden it's a group of sensations, a group of feelings that they have called all along frustration. But the different sensations, the moment you name it, it becomes an emotion. But what it is just bodily sensations. It's energy that's stuck in the body. So the body is looking to go back to the past. It's believing it's in the past. Are you with me still? So if the person becomes aware that their body is doing that, and like training an animal, allow the body to feel that emotion and then settle it down into the present moment. When you settle it down into the present moment, the body starts to trust the present moment and move out of the past. And there's a release of energy. Then the body goes, wait a second, what's going to happen in the next moment? And it starts doing that. And it starts to try anticipate the future. And you settle the body back down into the present moment. And every time you do that, you're telling the body it's no longer the mind, that you're the mind and your will is getting greater than the program. And all of a sudden, you start to lower the volume to that emotion. And when you begin to break the addiction to that emotion, the side effect of breaking that addiction is called joy. It's called freedom. all of a sudden the body's saying, I don't want to be tormented anymore. Now, does that mean you shouldn't grieve over things that you lose? Grieving is a biological process. That's why you're saying it. So the subconscious is 95%. So more than likely, your body is going to do exactly what it's programmed to do. So what's the relevance of that? Well, people say, I want wealth, but they're programmed into being unworthy and lacking. So then as they begin to do the meditative work and they start opening their heart, I was just talking to someone yesterday. When you open the center, things are going to sift to the top. All the programs are going to come right up. And when they come up like that, you're going to see why it isn't manifesting in your life. Now, don't see it as like, why is this happening? Did I do something wrong? The subconscious is actually venting. There's a certain period of time in the early mornings where we vent our anxieties, we vent our fears. It's the way the subconscious goes, let's just have this dream and let's just get it over with. So the subconscious is saying, what if you hit the tree? What if you're actually going to hit the tree? You're going to hit the tree because that's exactly the imagery you have when you're trying to create something. You're saying, I really want this because I'm really afraid of dying. I'm really afraid of failure. I'm really afraid of rejection. So the person is subconsciously and unconsciously creating the imagery that's actually being revealed to them. So how do we change that? Well, really simple. We've got to start rehearsing a new way. We've got to start getting into those deep brainwave states, getting beyond the analytical mind, slowing our brainwaves down, getting into the operating system, and start reprogramming. So when this happens, these are the things I'm going to do. These are the things I'm going to do to create that and start rehearsing those steps, priming and reprogramming the brain into a new outcome. So I have had that many, many years in my life, but I always have seen it as a strong sign, a strong symbol that I've got something switched in my brain. I could say that people say I want to be healthy. Yeah, it's 5% of your conscious mind, but you set them at the dinner table and they're breaking all the rules of everything they said. So why does that happen? Because the program is running and they've lost their free will to a program. So now that's important because your subconscious is talking to you. Now you've got to get in there. You've got to get in there and start rehearsing that you're going to step away from the table, that you're not going to eat after a certain hour, that you're going to make better choices and rehearse them and remember what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. Now you begin to, on a fundamental level, begin to rewrite the script, begin to rewrite the program. And over time, if you make one or two new choices and restrain some old choices, you'll tend to make more better choices after you make a few because you'll start feeling the satisfaction of your efforts. I was altered in some way because I lost everything, and I haven't been able to change for the last 2 years. The fact that we can think about how we think, the fact that we can observe how we're acting, the fact that we can pay attention to how we're feeling means we can modify ourselves to do a better job in life. That's called metacognition. So when a person begins to wake up to who they're being, and then they say, like Gandalf on the bridge in Lord of the Rings, you may not pass today, that kind of decision becomes an experience for the person that they never forget. That kind of willingness to change is when they transmute those survival emotions into elevated emotions. And those emotions, because they're addictive and emotions are the record of the past, then for the most part, the body, as the unconscious mind, does not know the difference between an experience in your life that creates an emotion and an emotion that you can fabricate by thought alone. To the body, it's the same. So a person who's living in anger every day or sadness in every day, their body, as their unconscious mind, is believing it's in the same past conditions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The body's in the past. So when a person takes that emotion and literally denatures it and turns it into another emotion, the freedom from that addiction, breaking the chains from that emotional addiction is called self-love, is called joy. Now there's a liberation of energy. The person is in love with themselves, they're in love with their life, and they say, that was so worth it. And all of a sudden they look back at their past and they say, I would never change anything in my past because it brought me to this present moment. And when you can look back at your past that way, then the past rolls up to the present moment, and now you're beginning to experience true freedom. That certain people will not see possibility until they reach crisis, till they reach their lowest level, and then they're going to wake up and say, I better change. I think the greatest demonstration of change really is to begin to show others how to do it, to be the living example of it. That when you and I are the living example of joy, that when we are not attached to what people think or emotions that keep us feeling sick, and we are celebrating life and we are passionate about our future, that we are filled with ideas and inspiration, that's a very contagious state of being. And people that are lost in habits or lost in those emotional states, they will see it initially as an affront. It will be a confronting moment for them. But inside them, they secretly want to be free. They just don't know how to do it. So we always say in our workshops, you always know when someone is in the midst of change because they stop talking about it. They don't talk about it. They're too busy being it. So if you and I are waking up every morning and demonstrating change in our life, the people in our life have one of two choices. They either begin to become inspired by change for themselves, not because you're preaching to them philosophically, but because you're demonstrating it in your life. They'll either rise up to that, or the person cannot maintain a relationship with the person who's living in such freedom, which means they'll probably stay the same for the rest of their life. But if crisis happens, they may make another choice. So my recommendation for people who are steeped in habits and emotional states and patterns of thought, the individuals around them have to live in a state of joy. They have to live in a state of freedom. They have to demonstrate it in every single area of their life. And normally there's a thing in physics called entrainment, which means sooner or later, others start to vibrate at the same rate as you. If you look at this and you study it in history, it's a sign that something new has to be born. As the old model of reality begins to change, something else has to replace it. So we have two ways that we actually face crisis. We can either face crisis in a state of emergency, which in the beginning of a crisis is healthy, or we can face crisis in a state of creativity and innovation. If you're addressing a financial crisis or a crisis in a culture and everybody is selfish and everybody's living by those emotions, then they're pushing their way to get to the head of the line. They're competing. They're forcing outcomes. They're using very primitive systems to try to take care of themselves. We know from the physiology of the brain that most of the blood supply goes to the hindbrain and away from the forebrain. Those chemicals create a gap between the way things appear in our life and the way things really are. In other words, we're viewing reality in an altered state. We don't see possibility. We feel separate from each other. We are competing and striving to get to the head of the line by using our cunning, manipulative, egocentric ways to get there. And we're very controllable. Fear is very controllable. Competition is very controllable. Anger and war divides individuals. Now that is not a way to address a crisis, because the service to self, or taking care of the self, is the exact thing that enhances the crisis. Because if you and I are all doing the same, if we're all doing the same thing, then a culture becomes more divided. It becomes more disintegrated. It becomes more incoherent. And possibility then is not part of the equation. So the other state of mind, if you can view crisis as a great opportunity, brilliantly disguised as an impossible situation, and you have to match the conditions in your environment with a new mind. Now we're talking about greatness, because innovation and creativity and a new way of thinking and a new way of being means that we can't do the same thing from the past. And so in history, cultures that are individuals that overcame their environmental conditions were considered mystics and saints and leaders and charismatic leaders. They were individuals that saw past the illusion of the present reality. When we begin to become innovative or creative, the brain begins to switch. We begin to turn on the forebrain, the frontal lobe, which is really the crowning achievement of the human being, and we begin to ask bigger questions. How can we create a new way of being in a world that's falling apart? How can we begin to create a new system to adapt to these conditions? And I think that people, when they begin to feel empowered by possibility, when they begin to see that the death of the old paradigms means the beginning of a new paradigm. How many people actually believe in the idea that the way you think has some effect on your life? So how many people actually woke up this morning and consciously created a future? You know, the biggest reason why people don't do it is because you don't really believe it's true. You see, if you knew on a gut level that it was absolutely true, would you ever miss a day, and would you ever let any thought slip by your awareness that you didn't want to experience? So your brain, according to neuroscience, is organized to reflect everything you know in your life. Your brain is a record of your environment. It's a record, an artifact of your past. So if you believe this, then does your environment control your thinking, or does your thinking control your environment? So if you wake up in the morning and you get out of bed on the same exact side as you did the day before, you shut the alarm clock off with the same finger, you slip into your favorite slippers, you shuffle into the bathroom and you use the toilet like you always do, then you walk over to the mirror and you look at yourself to remember who you are, then you get into the shower and you wash yourself in the same routine way, then you groom yourself to look like everybody expects you to look, then you go downstairs and you drink coffee out of your favorite mug. Then you drive to work the same way as you did the day before. You see the same people that push the same emotional buttons. You do the exact thing that you know how to do, and you memorize and can do so well that you're an expert at. Then you hurry up and rush home so you can hurry up and check your emails, so you can hurry up and go to bed, so you can hurry up and do it all over again. Now here's my question. Did your brain change at all that day? We could say that you were thinking the same thoughts, performing the same actions that create the same experiences, that produce the same emotions, but secretly expecting something to change in your life.